Public access will always be around. I mean, whether it's in a digital sense or a non-digital sense, it'll always be around.
The first thing you think of when you hear public access is 2 chairs on a carpeted riser with a table, a plant, and really bad lighting.
My name is David Feiner. I am the programming coordinator and assistant training coordinator here at PACTV. I've been here about a year and a half. My main responsibility is making sure all the programming that you see on the public access channel goes on every time, on time, all the time. We are programmed about 24 hours a day. I'm sorry, about 20 hours a day of programming and about 4 to 5 hours a day of bulletin board. So in other words, if you see our channel blue, that's my fault. And that's what I'm in charge of, is making sure the channel is programmed correctly all the time. I'm not in charge of the content of the programming, just making sure that it gets on correctly.
My name's Dan Rodriguez. I'm the production and training coordinator here for PACTV. I'm serving in a few capacities here at this particular facility. I am the head technician, and I'm also the lead trainer. I also serve in some management capacity in terms of budget control and staff management and so on. And I've been doing, or shall I say, I've been involved in the public aspect realm of communications for close to 11 years now. My second job in the field of television was actually in an access center, and I've stayed with it ever since. Reasons for that have been basically access has been a really great place to grow as a video professional and a communications professional. And access in general is enough of a gray area as far as policy and regulations go, meaning that these facilities are always changing and growing with the demands of the community, that if you're a professional starting to get in to the industry, it's a good place to kind of feel yourself out and find out what you're good at. And where I landed, where I finally found out the place where I found myself more comfortable was in the technical aspects of it, the training aspects of it. Not so much the management, political end of things, but the nuts and bolts of it. We're here in the main control room at PACTV in Plymouth, which has been up and running now for about, I don't know, 5 months. We opened up in September of '99. The control room was designed to accommodate a crew of 5 people for multi-camera studio productions and so on. So we have a pretty up-to-date array of equipment for an access center, mainly because we're new, so all the gear is less than a year old. 24-channel audio mixing board, a pretty decent array of audio equipment here. High-end graphics system which does animation and can import just about every single PC formatted image file you can think of. It will also do frame grabbing and so on, so people can incorporate their own video in their graphics. This is our VTR array. We're SVHS format right now. It's the most user-friendly format for access centers. Because it's downward compatible, people can use VHS equipment and SVHS equipment in conjunction with each other, and that helps cut down on cost. And it's a nice segue from what people are used to using with home equipment, with camcorders and so on, and VCRs. Gives them an easier understanding of the equipment if they can relate to it in some way. Moving on, we have a monitor array which is dedicated to the different sources that we have, a camera array and 2 monitors dedicated to our VTRs. A 10-input video switcher through which we run our cameras and our decks and our graphics system through a downstream key channel. This is our on-air monitor, so what you're seeing right here is actually on our channel, channel 3. We also have 2 other channels, a government access channel and then another channel on 18 which covers the town of Kingston. So we actually cover 2 towns here. This is our program monitor, which basically gives you a larger view of whatever you're sending out on tape or on the air, and preview and record. Pretty decent intercom system, dual channel, so we can address different groups or a floor director or so on. So we can assign communication to and from two different locations. And then this is our engineering rack, waveform vector scope, very standard type of setup, which allows me to do some fine tuning and tweaking of the equipment throughout the week, just to make sure it's running the way it should be for our users. I've been with PACTV for, it'll be 2 years in March. I was hired before the facility was actually built. I was hired to help design the studio. And I've been with the facility and with the organization, I guess you can say, because we weren't really a studio when I started, since about a year after its inception. The license for this new cable operation and the new access agreement actually started just about a year before I was hired, at which time Nancy Richard, our executive director, was hired, and she was given a year to get something off the ground and begin hiring staff to help build this facility. I was hired actually about a year after the initial license was established for the town of Plymouth, when the town of Plymouth decided to take over access in this town because they weren't satisfied with the way Adelphia, the cable operator here, was doing it. Ironically enough, my first job in access was working in the studio for this town when it was run by Adelphia Cable. And now I've gotten to come around on the other side and be on the nonprofit end of that, where the cable company provides us with the money and we do with it what we will, as opposed to the cable company controls all the money and does with it what they will.
Public access television is kind of like community college. Anybody in the community can come in, learn how to use our equipment, and have access to channel time. We do not discriminate in any way, shape, or form. Everybody as well, anybody who lives or works in the towns of Plymouth or Kingston is welcome to come in, take the classes, and then make a public access television program. And to answer your question directly, I don't think there's a basic answer to what is public access, because it's been redefined over the years. With the times, it's always had a changing definition. So I don't think there's really, today's definition wasn't last year's definition, and it won't be next year's definition. So it depends on when the people watching this are actually watching this. So I don't really think there's an exact definition, but anybody in the community can come in and use our facility. That's basically what public access is. Back in the early 60s, in New York, I believe it was, people wanted their government-type meetings covered, seen on TV. Those who couldn't make it to the meetings, those who were elderly or handicapped or physically unable to make it to these meetings, wanted to be able to watch them on TV or on tape or whatever it may have been. It didn't matter when they were seen, as long as they were able to see it. And so what these cable providers were giving their cable customers was a chance to see the meetings without actually being there. Before that, the public could only read a set of minutes to figure out what happened, or read in the newspaper what happened at these meetings. Over the years, that's developed into more coverage of more types of government meetings, as well as opening up a television facility for anybody in the community. Anybody can come in here, whether you're a professional, whether you're a beginner. Everybody's welcome. So We have people that have been doing their show for 12 years, 12, 15 years. We have people who are just starting. So we have all kinds of levels of members and all types of levels of productions. So there's really a wide range, whether it's religious or sports or news or music or variety. We have it all. I really do think we have it all on our channel.
When comparing what we offer to the community to other centers that I've actually visited, fortunately, being in this part of the industry for this long, I've been able to see a lot of the facilities in the region, and through special membership organizations, I've been able to see facilities on the other side of the country, literally, Portland, Seattle, California. On a technical level, as far as equipment goes, logically we're a new facility, so we have a lot of the new gear. Fortunately for us, as a startup at this time, we were starting out with the newer technology for equipment. We have some basics, but we have much more high-end equipment available to our members that I guarantee you wouldn't find in at least 75% of the access centers in this region. Most of that is because we're a new license and we're able to start from the ground up. Whereas if another facility renews their license, usually that equipment stays, the initial capital purchase remains, which is usually your cameras and the foundation of the operation, and then you get to add things to that along the way. But we were lucky that with our initial startup money, we were able to outfit this facility with equipment that a lot of other access centers don't have, at a higher degree of quality as well. The other thing that we offer is a pretty large facility. We lucked out with the town of Plymouth, where we were able to take over an old mansion and gut it and do what we saw fit with it. So we have a pretty large studio space, a decent sized control room, and room to expand, to build another studio, another control room, additional edit suites, teaching accommodations, meeting accommodations, a kitchen, a full kitchen. Things like this which a lot of corporate environments take for granted. But for a non-profit, non-revenue generating entity, we have a lot of space and a lot to offer the community at basically $20 a head for a year, So we lucked out there.
We serve 55,000 cable subscribers over the towns of Plymouth and Kingston. We don't know how many people are actually watching at one time. We don't have a rating system. The only time we can guess how many people are watching is by phone calls. If somebody calls to complain about a program, if somebody calls to ask a question, somebody calls to praise a program, that's the only time we know how many people are actually watching at that time. We have Channel 3, which is our public access station. That's where all of the shows are on. What I was talking about being programmed 20 hours a day. We have shows from 10 a.m. to about 10 or 11 p.m. and then midnight to about 5 a.m. So we are programmed through the middle of the night as well. Channel 98 is the government channel for the town of Plymouth. We do Plymouth Board of Selectmen, Plymouth Finance Committee, Plymouth Planning Board, and Plymouth Town meetings on Channel 98. In Kingston, we have Channel 18, and that's only, right now it's the Kingston Board of Selectmen and Kingston Town meeting. There's not as much of a demand in Kingston because it's a lot less people, but the government channel is there, available to them. Originally, we only had Channel 3, and we were trying to put all of Plymouth government, all of Kingston government, and our public access on one station. We realized it was too much because of people. There was a demand for replays of meetings as well, and if a replay of a meeting goes 5 or 6 hours, that's 5 or 6 hours where there could be no programming, public access programming. So there was the problem with that. So that's why we opened up Channel 98 and Channel 18 for Kingston and Plymouth.
We are now in the studio portion of the facility. It's our main studio, which is attached to the control room. This building, or this room, was actually an addition. This used to be the backyard of the mansion. We actually took over an old mansion, entered into a contract with the town, and they allowed us to build out. So we built this box under the back of the building to accommodate what I anticipated a pretty large turnout. This town has a history of doing large functions, but there's a huge auction that the Rotary Club does every year, uses a lot of space. So we decided to go with a large facility so we can accommodate, you know, the big soundstage type stuff, and, you know, the little talking heads tape programs as well. Along with this studio, I wanted to get some decent cameras, so we went with the Sony digital series. This is the DXE30, which is a digital head, studio back, and, you know, pretty large viewfinder, and an ENG lens. The reason why we went with the ENG lens and not a studio lens, which doesn't have to have as much of a magnification, is because I believe in being modular. I believe in being able to upgrade the equipment, and should we find ourselves in a situation where we want to start investing in some high-end acquisition equipment, well, we've already got the cameras. All we have to do is pop the studio back off and get a digital cassette back for it, or something like that. So we have that flexibility. We went with digital cameras on the front end, even though we're only working with SVHS on the back end, because there was a lot of push to go with the digital format. Not really knowing where it stood at the time, we decided to go with the digital front end, and should the trend pick up with the digital format, then we can just replace our decks, and we're getting a digital signal all the way through.
Anybody in the community who lives or works in Plymouth or Kingston is eligible to become a member. It's $20 a year, and you can come in and take the classes, use the facility. When I mean classes, we have 2 sets of classes. One is the studio production class, which is a 6-week studio class taught by Dan Rodriguez. And yes, it's an overview of studio, and every week he touches on a different portion of the studio. And by no means are you expected to become an expert at the end of the 6 weeks. But that's what the rest of your yearly membership is for, to come in and fine-tune those skills that you learned in the class. And if you're a single person coming in to take the class and you don't have a crew, maybe that's what the other 7 people in the class will become. There are 8 people in a class, so maybe the other 7 people will become your crew, and vice versa. Maybe you'll become a crew person for somebody else's production. Because at that point, those people are just as trained as you are on the equipment. Another class that we teach is portable production for people to, just like what you're doing now, is take equipment out in the field and do a production in the field. We realize that not everybody wants to do a studio setting. They want to sit in front of the water. They want to sit in their living room. So we're able to, people are able to learn how to use the camera, take the camera out of the building, do a portable production, and then come back into the building and edit their footage.
We're pretty fortunate. We have 12 playback decks for both our government and public access channels, which allows us to keep the channel lit for about 20 to 22 hours a day, with a minimum amount of tape changes. We can probably load up the machines maybe 2-3 times a day and have the channel lit for that long. It's a really nice feature. We're going with, again, the SVHS format, and we're using a 16 unit event controller called the Electronics Pro 16. It's programmable through a software package that allows you to get in there and set up all your times and then upload them to the controller, and then you run your programming from there. It's basically a giant remote control for all those machines. It's also a video switcher that selects which one of these devices it's looking at before it sends it out on the channel. This right here, what you're seeing here, is being broadcast from this room out of this machine right now. So when the time comes, this will trigger that machine to rewind. This will switch to our bulletin board, and then it will also trigger another machine to start playing, and then it will switch it over when it's ready. It's a nice hands-free setup. But because of the amount of programming that we have a staff person dedicated to this job alone. There's a lot of organization, a lot of press that has to be done to let people know what's going on the channel and just keep everything in line.
After someone produces a show, they have to go through a process called requesting time on the channel. Nobody owns a time slot, even though shows are seen every week at the same time. Nobody owns that time slot. They have to formally request the time. So they have to fill out a form called a channel time request form. Gives their name, their phone number, and their address, letting me know. And it's like I said, it's the same thing every week, but they have to fill it out every week. Give me the title of the program and a brief description of what's on that specific program. And the reason for all that is if somebody calls to ask a question about the program, I'm not going to be able to have time to go and watch the program for a half hour or an hour and get all the information I need. So people fill out this information for me just to give me an idea as to what I would be looking at. Also involved in that is if somebody has a question of the person who produced the program, I am able to give out that information right away. Part of PACTV does not produce any programming. So we are not responsible for any programming. The individual producers are responsible. So I'm able to give out the phone number, and that caller can ask the producer directly. If it's a praise, if they call and say, that's such a great program, I want to be on it, I want to know more about it, I want to get it played in Duxbury, I want to get it played in Marshfield, I want to get it played in Rhode Island. You would know more, you as a producer would have an easier time getting that show to another community than I would. As far as censorship goes, we're not allowed to preview shows. Content, that's because of content, and that's because of technical quality. As far as content, I'm not allowed to watch a show before it goes on. If I want to see a show, I have to watch it at the same time everybody else does. One of the questions on this channel time request form is, does this program contain materials which may be inappropriate for young viewers? I don't know what material is inappropriate for young viewers. I'm just asking, whether it's swearing, whether it's profanity or obscenity or whatever it may be. Does it contain any of this? If you answer that no, it's going to go on before 10 o'clock. If you answer that yes, it's going to go on after 10 o'clock. And there are many reasons for this. A lot of our producers are parents or have younger brothers and sisters, and there are producers that answer yes to this, and they want their show on after 10 o'clock. Some producers have said, yes, I don't want it played before 10, I want it on at 10. There's a reason for that. As far as if we see a show that has blatant pornography on it, we have the right to pull it. Everything gets played once, at least once. If it has blatant pornography, blatant profanity, blatant obscenity, we pull it.
Traditionally, access centers are television production.
As far as digital television goes, digital editing, we will be doing very little digital editing by the end of the year. As far as producers doing their own digital editing, maybe 3 or 4 years from now, I just see this medium growing. I don't ever see a stop to it. People are always interested in TV. Getting on TV, whether it's being on in front of the camera or learning how to do TV, there's always an interest there, and I think that's true with. We always have full classes, and whether those people actually use what they've learned to produce a program, or maybe they just wanted to learn how to use a camera just for the hell of it, they're always full. And we may never see some of these people ever again, but there's always somebody else who wants to know.
The person who's running this place, Nancy Richard, her thing is business. That's her strength. But it's also community programs. being really well tuned to what's happening in the community as well as technology.
Our best advertiser is word of mouth. And when I say our, I don't mean PACTV, I mean cable access, public access television. People that come into facilities like ours and learn how to use the equipment will, and if they have a positive experience, will only tell their friends what a great experience it was. And those friends will say, hey, maybe I can do that too. 4 or 5 years from now, when it's all digital editing, I mean, you know what not a lot of people know what digital editing is, but linear editing, you know, you have to go A to Z and edit beginning to end. You can't change anything in the middle. You can't go back to the beginning. Non-linear editing, digital editing, when people learn how to edit, to be able to pull something from here and put it here and take something over here and put it back at the beginning and move things around, that's mind-blowing to a lot of people, but it's fascinating at the same time, and it's something that they never thought of before.
Everything is coming into reaching one point where internet, desktop applications, and television media, even radio, are all joining. It's all over the place right now. So we had to put ourselves in a position where, okay, you know, somewhere down the line, the definition of public access is probably going to change.
As much as I see this growing now, I can only imagine it's going to grow tenfold 5 years from now. Will I still be involved? I don't know. I can't see past tomorrow. But I know that this is a medium that just won't stop. This will always be around. And I'm kind of happy to say that, you know, I was at this level now when I started in the digital age, and not 10 years from now when it's all digital.
We actually have been fortunate enough to have a leader with the foresight of joining the traditional media, which we're referring to television at that point, and digital and internet. We have a computing center, space for a computing center, in which we plan to build and train people for access to the internet, through which we can actually do streaming video and online productions. The short answer to where I think public access is going is if the media is going to keep converging the way it is, you're going to need a way to get your picture onto whatever device you're using to transmit it, whether it's tape, CD-ROM, or through the internet, okay? And it can go in those 3 directions. So the TV end of it is still justified, and the front end of it is taken care of now, but we've also poised ourselves to be networked into an online internet application. That's where I think public access is going. I think public access is going to turn into access to the internet.
I'd like to see it reach a point where the members are organizing meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a producers
Or
meeting. It's not a
even to the
PACTV
point where-
meeting for the producers.
Right.
So someone calls up, hey Dan, you know, and we can appoint someone. Okay, who's
We're to
gonna?
the point where even like members are teaching an editing class. Or
Yeah,
refresher,
that'd be great.
like a refresher
Yeah,
class.
follow-ups. And the other thing we really got to concentrate on is plugging in. You know, I've plugged you in a couple of times, and I've let people show up for your shows. And whether it's because you're not comfortable with it, or because you're not ready, or your attention isn't on them, sometimes they just kind of stand there and watch what's going on.
Well, like Jen last week, I didn't know she was what she was
Yeah.
in for. I
Ask
said,
her.
hi, I'm Dave, and she said, hi, I'm Jen. I said, how you doing?
As a rule, what we need to do is get in the practice of if there's a body floating around,
Yeah,
there's
use
something going on, ask them, what are you doing right now?
Yeah.
Because then they feel valued. They feel like they can be part of what's going on.
But today I felt really good, like there were 6 people around.
Yeah. And it's a weird feeling because you're not used to working with that
Yeah,
many
because
people.